So I'm here to drop all the hard truths because it's through identifying all of those nuances where you're actually going to expand your consciousness. This is a common narrative that due to the abuse, we end up behaving in ways that lack integrity. And my perspective on this is probably going to sting a little because it's designed to open you up for more expansion. So when you're in an abusive relationship and you start to notice yourself lying about small things, withholding and shrinking and hiding parts of yourself just to avoid another argument, just to keep the peace, it is so easy to think, well, they made me this way. The abuse made me this way. And that is exactly what we're told by most educators in this space. Like they will say, you were conditioned by the abuse to be inauthentic. Here's the hard truth that most people don't want to look at. The abuser didn't create those tendencies. They just exposed them. That part of you that lied to avoid conflict, that walked on eggshells, that shape-shifted to stay connected, it didn't start with them. It started way, way earlier. Usually in childhood when you first learned that being yourself didn't equal love or safety. Or when you learned that keeping the peace was more important than speaking your truth. Or when you learned that to survive, you needed to smile and nod your head and say everything was fine, even though it wasn't. And what most people will say is, but I don't act like this with anybody else. It only started doing this because of them, the abuser. Just because it didn't show up in other relationships, it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. It just hadn't been activated in that way yet. A lot of those behaviors, like lying to avoid conflict and performing to earn love, self-abandoning to maintain connection, they were already weaved into your nervous system. They were baked into how you learn to attach and how you learned to survive love. They often hide under the surface, especially when you've spent your whole life being the easy one or the strong one or the good partner. But toxic relationships are like a magnifying glass. They don't plant something new inside of you. They amplify what is already inside. It makes those voices more louder, more painful, more obvious. If we keep saying things like the abuser made me do this, then one, we're giving them way too much credit, and two, we're giving our power away. Because when you can own that those parts were already there, not because you're broken, but because you were trying to survive, that is when things start to change. When you stop focusing on them and you start focusing on you, on your truth, on your boundaries, on your nervous system, on your reclamation of authenticity. Because authenticity isn't just a buzzword. It is your compass. And when you live by authenticity, people who rely on your shape-shifting for connection, they don't stick around. And that is a good thing. You don't need to make them a villain. You just need to stop playing the role. I know that this can feel messy and confusing, especially if being authentic feels selfish or unsafe. This is the work. This is where healing begins.